This is an assembly board used in French marquetry for assembling marquetry pictures. It's just a piece of MDF covered in this French Kraft Paper. The Kraft Paper is the most important element of this. It has a shiny side that's water resistant and a matte side that will absorb water. What we do is we take a marquetry picture and we assemble it face down on the shiny side of the paper. Once it's assembled and filled with mastic and sanded down, you cut the picture off, flip it over, glue it to your substrate, and now the matte side of the paper that absorbs water is facing up. At this point, you can wet the surface and scrape the paper off, and there you have your assembled picture properly adhered to the substrate. I take a couple extra steps. This is a piece of MDF that's 20 inches long and 12 inches wide. And what I do before I apply any water to this paper, I'll set it down and place it exactly where I want it. I cut my paper very close to size because I don't want to waste it. So I'm going to make sure that these edges meet up. And when the board over, they'll reach each other. So now that I have the board in place, I'll take a pen and put an outline. So that after I wet the paper and I'm ready to glue up, I can just set the board right down inside this grid. This is done on the matte side of the paper. So now I have the grid down, and I can flip the paper over, and using distilled water, because we have very hard water here, I'll just take a sponge and start to wet the surface of the paper. And this is the shiny side, do not wet the matte side of the paper. And as this absorbs water, the paper is going to wrinkle. And as it wrinkles, you'll want to lift it up, remove the wrinkle, maybe apply more water. This process takes a couple of minutes. This paper is now absorbed that water and is stretched quite a bit. So I'll flip it over. So now the matte side is facing up. And I'll take my piece of MDF and I can just set it down inside those guidelines. And when I do that, I can look at this line in the front and I can see now the paper is expanded about 1/8 of an inch. So, our next step is to, using high glue, put a nice layer along the edges of the board. Patrick prefers to do 3 edges, the 2 sides and the front. Patrice prefers to do all the edges now. Patrick will, after putting glue on this edge in the front, place the board down and then apply glue to this edge. Patrice feels that causes glue to spread, and so he does it all at once. Both ways work pretty well. So what I do is I'll mix up the glue. I'll check the consistency, it's the right consistency. And trying my best to keep the board over the glue pot so I don't spill and waste too much glue, I'll go ahead and start to apply it. You're going to spill glue though, so don't worry about it too much. I'm going to try and work pretty quickly. This glue will gel as it cools. I've been doing something a little differently with the board. I'll apply glue to these 3 edges. And then like Patrice, I'll come over to this edge, the 4th edge, apply the glue. take this edge that I just glued and use that as my front edge. So again, I'll come back, I'll put this down in the grid. Okay, so it's aligned nicely. So now I'm going to take the paper and fold it up over the edge. I'll press it in place. Now I'll take a sharp razor blade, make a cut here, make a cut here, and then going around the midpoint of this edge, I'll make a cut. So now I'll peel that paper off. So what that is, that exposed a fresh layer of glue on top. So now we can fold this over, keeping it taut. I'll fold it over, I'll work the wrinkles out, make sure it's stretched pretty well. And now I'm going to fold these edges over. And because we just made that cut and took off that top layer, this is now going to adhere to that fresh hide glue. So I'm just going to work that edge down and press it nice and tight, stretching the paper as I go. You want to work pretty quickly. Okay. So again, we're going to cut along the midpoint. The paper bunches up at the corners, but you can just pull it, slice down, pull the paper on. So now we've removed all that excess paper. I'll just fold those corners down a bit. So the next step is to take Veneer tape wet the tape. This little dispenser wets it automatically for me. And tape over your edges. This is going to allow the hide glue some time to dry. And you don't have to worry about the paper, which is also drying, pulling the joint apart. You want to work pretty quickly with the Veneer tape as well. It dries out pretty fast. There will probably be some moisture on the edge from the original wetting of the paper. So it should adhere pretty well. So that's it, and we have a finished assembly board. Now the is still wet, what is going to happen over the next day is that it's going to dry, it's going to contract, it's going to stretch over the surface of this, so it'll be very tight. So you can assemble your picture on it.